Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And over the span of years I've been doing this show, we've had writers, we've had artists, we've had inkers, we've even had a letterer or two. This is the first time I can gladly welcome a colorist onto the show, a colorist who's going to take the leap into the dangerous world of writing. It is the ultra talented. You've seen him on many books without even realizing. It is the ultra cool. It is Lee Loughridge. Lee, how's it going?
Good. I'm glad I got to break the seal.
Yes, you're my first. I feel vindicated or virginated, whichever.
That's right. Nobody wants to hear from colorists.
I love colorists. I think colorists and letters get a bad rap, and I think it stems from when you get into comics. I got into comics back in the 70s, and honestly, I didn't even care there was a writer to these things. I was just like, hey, look what Batman's doing, or hey, look what Spider-Man's up to. It wasn't until, I suppose, the second time I got into comics, or third even, I got into comics about 89 with the whole Batmania thing, then dropped out around mid-90s, the Clone Saga, and then came back around to 2010, at which point the whole thing had changed. Colorists, that I've said this before, over the last 25 years, the coloring technique on comic books has just dramatically increased massively.
Yeah. You know, I can give you a little history on that.
Go for it.
Like I started when we would do it by hand. We would do it, on like a Strathmore paper marker, watercolor, colored pencils, whatever. Then you do like Batman, or say it's Superman, and you just color him in his red. You'd have to code it. So you have to draw a line, and you have to write yellow 100, magenta 100. So, and then it would go to a guy or a girl that had a machine. I think they're called Cod Barretts, and it was basically a machine that primitively ran what would become Photoshop, and they would do this separation. So they just take your guide and separate it. So a lot of the problem was, I think that company was in Ireland, and they were just, it was real primitive, real hacky. So color always sucked. Like it was always terrible unless it was really simple. And then you had Olaf got into the game with Spawn and Photoshop, and that's where, like, when you say you got back into it, I started digital color in like 95 or 6, super early. Photoshop was just Photoshop.
It's interesting. We have a show called The Old Timers Comic Book Show where we talk about comics of a certain vintage, and we've just recently we've been talking about characters that crossed over or were owned by one company and appeared somewhere else. And we were talking about Malibu Comics, and Malibu were the first guys to really sort of like challenge the digital coloring technique. It's one of the reasons why Image went there. One of the reasons why Marvel bought the company when Image left. It was to get hold of that digital skill.
Yeah, that was the early. There was only, there wasn't a ton of us doing it that way. And still, even though I was doing it digitally, I was doing it with a mouse. So that didn't help. But I think, like you were saying, and I got a Cintiq in 08, and that the one you can draw on.
Yeah.
And that changed it completely. So I think late, 2008, 2010, like you were saying, that's when it went ham, with brushes and, just that, the ease of use. Yeah, that was the game changer from the freaking, late 80s, early 90s, where it was just, it wasn't
pink dots. I remember the pink dots for skin.
It was limited then. You could only do 25% increments of color initially. Then it went to 5%. And then it's then it went haywire.
I always think colors are the texture of a comic book. You get to see the comic through its stages. You kind of like, you see the pencils, you have the story. How, as a colorist, how much do you pay attention to the story to get the kind of feel of the colors for the vibe of the book? Because I often think colors they have to match what we see on the paper. If, for example, if you're doing something like bright colors in a horror story, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Yet, if you're doing super dark colors on Superman, it doesn't work. So how much impact does the story have on you when you come to sort of like decoding the colors that you're going to go for?
I think it completely has an impact. So I'll open up. Usually, I'll get a book and I'll just scroll through the art fairly quickly, just go through it. And then if I'm doing a 8-page scene to start, I'll read the script first. So I'll read the script, look back at the art, and then kind of determine. I look for cues too. Give me a time of day.
Yeah. I was just going to say, do the writers sort of like think that far ahead to give kind of cues, and do they give you kind of like a plot synopsis rather than just like this is the first 8 pages of a book? Do you get like the overarching?
Yeah, a lot of times we'll get the high concept and a synopsis. It all helps. Any descriptors help. If I have no clue, if I can't tell, if the ink won't intimate what it should be, I'll usually just hit up the editor or the artist and go, well, please, I hate to do it, and then they go, that's not what I was thinking. I'm like, well, you didn't say.
Yeah, my page rate is like, I don't get paid per color. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You've worked on a ton of books.
Yeah.
I was doing some research this morning before chilling out. And I put your name into Google as you do, and it dawned on me. I have seen so much of your work, especially recently, and I've written some really nice things about your colors on Comic Crusaders. For anyone who doesn't know, Comic Crusaders is our sister site. We do review comic books. I make sure, because I'm the editor-in-chief, that colorists and letterers get credit. So we make sure that everyone gets a fair wag of the tail, as it were. How is it you've remained so successful working across the different aisles of comic books?
I don't know.
Honest answer. Like that.
I think a big part of it is, some lunatic made a crawler. That's probably I don't know if you found it. It's called like Mike's Comics. So Mike is a lunatic and had a page count of every artist, writer, letters, inkers, everything. And I think I saw like Chuck Dixon had put it up. He was on the list of writers. He's done a ton of pages, and they have it broken down to issues and page count, and it's nuts. So I was like, I went on that and I wonder, I'm probably pretty high. I've been doing this like 30 years and I'm fast. So, but it takes that amount of time to get fast.
Yeah.
And I tend to steer towards not easier, but more simplistic palettes and more simplistic modeling techniques. So you can get through it a lot quicker. But yeah, I've done a ton of pages. I think it was like something like, I'm number one for color, by a long shot.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on this, Lee, because for the view from the cheap seats is there are no easy projects. I've been seeing you on a little book called Detective Comics for a while, and that book, Ram V has just taken it in like so many different places, and you've been there with us, and it's just every issue is an experience.
So even on the Federici issues.
Yeah, you can't. You don't just. It's not like a 2-minute. Oh, look at this. Oh yeah, Batman's in trouble. Oh yeah, he's out with Gotham. Yeah, yeah. Done. Next. It's like every time I pick up this book, it's immersive. The environments when he's stuck in the desert, when he has his dream sequences. I'm sorry, man. That is not like. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll just do the easy project.
Yeah, I mean, I get through those fairly quickly. But that's definitely going over him because he's such a phenomenal painter. I'm always like, oh man, I gotta kick butt on this because he's something else. And I get a lot of notes on that stuff. He's particular because he's such a good painter. But I mean, I still get through that stuff fairly quickly too. But again, I'm quick. I've done this forever. Like I saw an influx of colors come in the. Like after like 2000, late 2000s or 2010ish, and a lot of them left because they they won't put 10 years in the chair.
Mm.
And I think you have to spend that decade at any craft, you know what I mean, to get where everything becomes unconscious.
Yeah.
I don't waver over a color decision. I just know what I'm going to do.
Cool.
And modeling and stuff like that. It's easy.
When it's easy, yeah, easy. Yeah. I'm super
Easy after
talented.
35,000.
It's interesting you mentioned all the colorists, because there are some absolute standout colorists kicking around right now. I think the first time I really took notice of colors as a reader rather than just kind of like a fan doing this sort of stuff was Dave Stewart over on Dark Horse.
Oh yeah, Dave's one of the best for sure.
More recently, Georgie Belair, I think, is absolutely phenomenal.
Good too. Yep.
Absolutely. No matter what you give these colorists, they are just bang on.
Yeah, and Georgie's smart because she doesn't go crazy with the modeling. She sticks more with good palettes, and and I think I appreciate that more than crazy modeling. I think crazy modeling steps all over the art. I'm just not a fan.
So explain that. What do you mean? Because talk to me like I'm an idiot. Secret is I'm an idiot. What's when you say modeling?
The whole time. No, like really high-end modeling. Where I would say everything looks like it's dipped in oil. Everything's got a shine and a glint. And I'm not a fan of that style because I think it's just too much. Like when anything impactful happens, you don't even notice it because you're just hitting them with, like it's like Michael Bay all day.
Oh, right. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, lens flash. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk on the old Twitterverse or Xverse or whatever you want to call it about AI. How does AI impact you as a colorist? Is it something you're worried about? Is it something you kind of just going to have to deal with as part as technology increases? How's it
one, it's on Twitter, so it's just a big.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair point. Yeah, okay. Shut myself in the foot with this argument.
I think my Twitter got hacked by like a crypto company like 2 years ago. I don't go on it. That place is toxic. No offense to Twitter people, but get off of there.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm a fan of AI. I love it. I would write a book and have it drawn in AI. I don't care. Like use it as a tool.
Yeah.
I've used chat to do log lines and stuff. I'll throw a log line in and go, well, I'll have an idea of where I think I want something to go, and I'll go, I wonder what chat thinks. It's to me, it's as arbitrary as bouncing it off a friend.
If your friend happened to have resources of all the things that have gone before, yeah,
it's creepy for sure. I'm not worried about it. Chat will never, or even with art, you kind of, when someone does it for real. Like we've made covers before. We did it. A bunch of us were together. It's with Rick Remender and some other guys. We did a Fear Agent cover and Midjourney. It was great. It was a good cover. But like you're not going to use it.
No, cool. Interesting.
I mean, who knows? That we might sound like idiots in 10 years.
I sound like an idiot now. What are you talking about? I don't have to wait 10 years for that. I've been in that chair already. I know I'm in the idiot chair.
I don't care about AI. I'm not worried about AI. I feel like use it as a tool to help you. They probably said that about the camera.
Yeah. I suppose if you want to break it down to bare bones, AI could be described that it's just the next step of Google, right? So I'll give you a reference for this. So I was at Thought Bubble a couple of years ago, which is like this big convention down in it was Leeds at the time, dirty Leeds, and one of the artists there was doing commissions, and this young lad said, "Oh, can I have a commission?" And she was like, "Yeah, what do you want?" He goes, "Oh, I like Venom, please." He's like, "Yeah, Venom, got it, Venom, cool." Off he goes. And then I look back at the artist and they're googling what Venom looks like. Now, you could argue that that's no different to asking AI, "Give me a picture of Venom."
Yeah, true. And a lot of people they'll trace backgrounds, they'll trace cityscapes, or they'll project things, or they'll bring in models. Like, I don't know, it's all part of the process. You can either tell that story in a dynamic way and draw things dynamically and write interesting dialogue. And I don't think AI can do that. And if it can, I think fans get attached to certain artists and writers and stuff like that. So that'll never go away. AI can't chat with fans and meet people and sign copies and like that'll. I mean, they're gonna do it. Like I would for sure AI a comic book, like write it and then have AI do it. But you'd probably spend more time writing descriptors for every panel than it would take for someone to draw it.
I had a guy tell me once when he was talking about writing reviews and stuff. He says, "What I do is I put some keywords into chat. It then gives me a review. I then run it through a program to make sure it sounds human, not robot.
Right.
Then I do the spell check. Then I put in words that I use in my day-to-day language to make it sound like me." At which point I was like, "Dude, just write the 600 words. It's easier."
Yeah, no, you're right. You'll spend more time doing that. But yeah, I agree. It's like if I have to write a short log line for some, it's hard to write a log line about your own property. I'll put it in there and just see what adjectives they're using. And it's helpful. It's like it's
tool, as you said. It's a tool.
Cool.
It's a starting point. It's a good starting point. If you want to use it as a starting point to germinate your idea, to see where it goes.
And everybody's freaking out about it. Like, just who cares? Just use it as a tool. Don't stress about it. I don't know. I like freak out about something else. We have bigger problems than AI stealing art at this point.
You say that fans have artists and writers. You must be a fan of comic books yourself. Who are your favorite writers and artists? Yes, I don't want you to throw anybody under the bridge. I'm not asking for
I mean,
all time. Who's your all-time favorite artist? For me, I love Jim Aparo, and I'm never going to change that. Jim Aparo is my Batman.
Look at you. All right. Well, Jim Aparo was one of the first people I worked over on Green Arrow.
Whoa.
And then it was Batman. And that was in 95, I think.
Yeah, he was on Detective Comics back then, I think.
I think it was. But he was, right? He was on Green Arrow. They switched, I think, he went from Grell to Jim Aparo on Green Arrow.
Yeah.
And it was really jarring for me.
Well, Aparo was on Green Arrow years before Grell turned up, so.
Right. I mean, there's so many. Artist-wise, like, I love like Wes Craig, Matteo Scalera, guys. I like Sean Murphy's really great.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Let me ask it a different way. Then, rather than put you on the spot like that. Let me ask it this way. Are there certain artists that you think, yes, I enjoy working because how you produce work gels with how I want to produce work?
I think for me, like, all right, I'm doing a project with Andrew Robinson.
Okay.
And I think he's the best living artist. And he produces work very slowly.
That's who needs this to you. You're like, you get one page, like, right, I'm done next. He's like, dude, I'm on the second panel of the second page, chill.
Yeah. It takes a long time. But yeah, I don't know that necessarily correlates. But like a guy like Matteo Scalera, who is such a phenom, he cranks work out. He is a machine. And that guy will do a cover, before lunch, and it's magnificent. He's so good. Because a lot of guys are pretty slow. I think that's the whole thing, is the economics of being an artist is you have to get stuff done. You have to be able to produce. And a lot of artists don't, a lot of writers don't. They sit down and get stuff going. But the ones that do are the ones that tend to be successful, right? Look at like a Scott Snyder. What does he write? 8 books a month? I don't know how he keeps track of that.
Yeah, indeed. There's an argument to be made there for sure. Right, we're going to take a break for one of our shows. When we come back, we're going to talk about your jump from colorist to writer with your own book that's coming out. Nervous?
Nope.
Nope, not at all. Let's have a look. Well, I'll tell you what. You saw we mentioned it already. Check it out. It's the Old Timers.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
There you have it, the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Check it out for, as I mentioned earlier, characters that have been appropriated through trade, free agency, whatever NFL moniker you want to put on it, from one company to another. Think Shazam, and you're on the right track. There you go. Cool. Right, Lee, your book. What made you want to jump from colorist to writer?
I've always written, but like, all right, here's another thing. We'll go back in the day again.
All right, okay, cool.
Like back in the day, you were always pigeonholed. Whatever you got into the industry as, that's all you were seen as.
Okay.
It was really hard for anyone to switch, like for an inker to become a writer. Totally difficult. You know, an editor's like, shut up, ink. I'm not paying you to write ink. You know, especially color. Color was bottom of the barrel then. But I also
below letters.
What's that?
Below letters. I thought letterers got with the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
sorry, Taylor Esposito. I didn't mean it. Don't hate me. Thank you.
But also, I didn't really care to write superhero stories.
Okay.
Most of the like synopses I had were more slice of life or just kind of out there sort of stories. So I think probably 2010, 2000, maybe mid 2005 to 10, it felt like those stories were more acceptable. Like, you know, when Vertigo became mainstream, like Vertigo comics became mainstream, I felt like, okay, maybe now I could sit down and start putting some of these things together.
Also, the plethora of independent books right now as well.
Right.
Just like the indie publishers, like Kickstarters, they can take comics in so many different ways. It's not just a Cape and Cowl world anymore.
Yeah, because like back in the day, like in 2000, if you put out an independent book, you'd be lucky to sell like 1,500 copies. So, which is fine, but like if you want to make a living, 1,500 copies is not gonna pay anything. That's a loss. That's a big loss monetarily.
So this is your book. It's on Comixology. It's a Comixology originals. Yourself is on writing duties and colours, and you've got Mac Chatter on or Chater, depending on your accent, on art. MidState. Tell us what this book is about and what we can expect a little bit, without, of course, spoiling any of the main details.
No, I won't go into it too much. It's pretty much about a disgraced clairvoyant in a small town in West Virginia. And he's been having crazy visions. No one believes he has abilities, which makes him utterly frustrated. And a new detective's been in town for a couple months, and she's following. There's been a ton of missing persons happening, and Paul, who's our clairvoyant, has had a few visions, and at one point, the vision aligns with reality, and he goes to the detective Abigail Dolan, and he's trying to prove himself. Like, you know, he's trying to. It's a vindication story. You know, he wants to be validated, and he wants to prove to her, like, hey, I'll help you solve this, and you'll see I have abilities, and you know, we all win. But and then there's a doctor they're chasing after. He has a plan of his own, and you know, it's kind of a mystery that you're involved with. I wanted the reader to be involved with it, and once you think you have it figured out, I gotta flip it on your head.
Darn you! I
want you to root for Paul.
I do absolutely. I loved it. I loved this book. I read it earlier today in prep of the show, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was it reminded me a little bit of Reacher, but Reacher of the mind, not of the violence. The kind of I don't want to say Hicksville. That's a little too generic. The kind of quiet town and the kind of unacceptance that comes from. I used to live in a town, a little village in the northeast of England, where if you played tennis rather than football, you were thought to be a little bit kooky.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, I grew up in a town of 5,000 people, so I get it. I pulled a lot from that. So it's I definitely drew a lot from that. You know, and you do that for Paul, and no one gives him a break. His own mother, you know.
I was like, at that moment, I was like, he's channeling my mother. I was like, what? Wow, she getting this book? So, you know, thanks for that. We're going to take a look at a couple of pages. This is the book, so these are on also some of the images you sent across. Interesting start for a colorist to go all black, practically.
Yeah, so I really didn't even do anything on these. This is all Mac. We wanted to write just a really ominous cold open before the credits. And just to give you an idea, like, really just to confuse you a little further. And it sort of explains what the MidState may be. I guess I can tease that. The MidState is the amount of time the soul stays with the body just after death.
Love that page. That page had me.
Yeah, and that gives you a little tease. So this is like a nightmare sequence, and then it, you know, open with a nightmare, and then get into the nice mellow town.
I didn't realize it was a nightmare until I hit this page, and I was like, "Oh, I get it. I'm there." And then it kind of goes, as you say, into the kind of stuff you maybe expect from someone like Mac.
Yeah,
whose work you might have seen before. I've got to say, I did genuinely love the book. I was intrigued right all the way through, and at the end of it, I turned to my wife and I was like, "What the hell's going on in this?" I was like, and I'm like, I'm, you know, to say it's a ride is an understatement for sure. I absolutely love how Paul gets not bullied, pillared.
Yeah, bullied. Yeah.
Right, he's like, "Oh, who's going to? What have I just ordered?" And,
it doesn't get any better.
No. And it's like, what is it about small towns where people just won't let you be? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's because it's a small town. You can't escape your people. You know, if you screw up, then that's your label. It's unfortunate, but it sucks.
I don't know. It's odd. In my local recently, I'm on a bit of a health kick, and I'm kind of cut down my alcohol intake. So I've been drinking zero Coronas and stuff like this. Yeah. And my local pub gave me grief last Thursday. Like, "Oh, you're another zero beer. Do you don't want Coke instead?" I'm like, "Dude, no." I just say, you know, why are you giving me grief? I can go home and drink it. I don't need to be here. Yeah. What are you giving me grief for? So I get it. There's this kind of community that loves and supports.
Yeah. So that's where he's so desperate to, you know, validate himself. I always saw him as like Paul Giamatti in Sideways.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so yeah.
That's totally. I mean, the first drawings of him looked a lot like Paul Giamatti. Yeah,
cool.
We tweaked it.
The detective that he hangs out with, the cop, Abigail, comes from a long line of strong female characters.
Right.
Is it important to you to have strong female characters in the current climate when we talk about how other genders are represented in comic books?
Sort of. I don't really think about whether it's a male or a female or what race or what you identify as at all. Like when we initially pitched this, I gave the script to Mac, and then Mac had everyone, you know, they're all like white guys, you know, and I think and Abby was always the girl. I always wanted the female lead. And also a female lead where there's no romantic anything. She's not there for that.
Not yet. Did he go on a date or did he not go on a date? That's the question.
Right. Of course he loved, you know, Paul's in love with her, but she may not even be into dudes.
There is that as well.
And who cares? So it's not, it doesn't inform the story at all.
Cool.
But then we, you know, Comixology was really, you know, they wanted us to diversify things even more. And then we start diversifying things. I didn't think Mac was off. Mac's from England, and he's in a small town.
Yeah.
This is in West Virginia in a small town. So like, I didn't care what race or gender anyone was so much.
Uh-huh.
I did assume they'd probably be like, just small town white folk from West Virginia, because that's what's there. But Abigail was always going to be a female who moved back from the big city, who was just kind of bored, and then, really latches on to this case. Yeah. She sees more to it than, the rest of the police force. And then Paul, gets her heated up to go to help her out.
I think you make a really valid point. I mean, in my neck of the woods, there is not a lot of diversification. We have people from like an Indian, like a West Indian and Pakistani culture, but we don't have African Americans. We don't have, So if I was to write a story based on what I see, I would write what I see. It's not me. It's not me making a political statement about something, but this is my slice of my life. Whereas if you go somewhere like Manchester, then it is a little bit more diverse. There's a lot of different cultures and a lot of ethnicities going on, and the gender, the sexuality thing. I understand why we have to have diverse characters, and I applaud that you should be diverse characters. But I also think there needs to be a relative realism to it. You don't go around and talk to people and out the first thing out your mouth, oh, by the way, who'd you sleep with? You when you meet people, you just genuinely don't care. Because you just talk to the person, right?
I don't care. I don't. Exactly. Yeah, I don't care if you're into squirrels. It's none of my business.
Yeah, well, depends where you put your nuts with the squirrels, I'm afraid, mate.
No, I think.
But that's kind of my point on this. I remember reading the Batwoman book from DC, the 12 issue, the newest of the ones. The first run by Rucker was fantastic. The last run was all about her being in, like 12 issues of her being in love with this woman. I don't mind being in love with a woman, but I don't need 12 issues of it, man. Just tell me your goddamn story.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's. I'm just gonna write what I want to write, how I want to write it, and Comixology wanted a little diversity in there. That's fine because it doesn't change the story in any way. It really doesn't matter. But it is odd when you see people, intentionally diversifying cast and sexualities just to do it. It's so I don't know. It's so obvious, and I'm always see it. I'm like, oh God, can't it?
Yeah, it throws your eye off. I always think when I'm reading something and something like that happens, I'm like, oh, here we go. Yeah.
But it's as arbitrary as like setting a story in the 80s, and the 80s doesn't inform the story at all. It has no effect on the story. They just wanted to put it in the 80s, or put it in the 70s. Yeah. There has to be a reason it's in the 70s. There has to be a reason. Maybe there's no cell phones, or just the technology's better, the music, or something that's going on at that time. The presidency, something. But they'll just do it to do it, and they'll do diversity, and I got canceled for this. Twitter's going to cancel me. Oh no. But it's not even about that. It's just I'm going to write, and I have a bunch. I have 9 completed stories, and they're coming out, and I'm going to write what I want to write.
Which do you find? This is kind of a bit of a redundant question, I suppose. You've been a colorist for 30-odd years, so I assume that coloring's easier than writing, or am I being the idiot in the chair again? Do you find that writing's more relaxing because it's more work because you're not doing it by routine or by rote?
Like I'll write at nights. I'll do a night of writing, a couple nights off, then a night of writing. And it's more like going out to the bar for me, because I'll have a couple drinks and I'm writing, and then I'm creating this dialogue, and I'm basically having drunken conversations with people.
That'll explain the typos.
It's fun though. You get in a different zone. It's really cool. I love writing. I love it. I have no issue sitting down and doing it. I don't have writer's block. I have no issue with it, I think.
Cool. Is that because you invested in your characters? How long have you had these characters going on in your head?
This book, I wrote this a long time ago, probably probably 4 years ago.
Long time ago. You sound like one of the newer breed of people I speak to. They say, "Oh, I love Star Wars. I grew up on Star Wars," and I say, "Oh yeah, I love The Force Awakens." I'm like, "Dude, that's not Star Wars."
I mean, not that long ago, but But there's a bunch of. I mean, I've started putting stuff together probably in the past 10 years, so I have a bunch of things. So it was just like figuring out how to start launching them. So because I'll have this, and I have another project coming out in September with Image and Giant Generator. So.
I suppose that's the benefit of being at the top of your game for as a colorist, is that you can call on places like Image and Comixology to help put the book out there, right?
I think there's definitely, I've had times where it's totally helpful knowing people, they know my work ethic, and I can get things done, but it is also having the package that they want, right? It's a pretty pragmatic decision. If I pitch a horror thing to say Skybound, and I know the guys at Skybound, they might say, we have too many horror books, or our schedule's filled this year. It's helpful, but it doesn't quite do it. In Comixology, I'm close with Chip Mosier, who was running it, and he definitely got this pushed ahead for me.
Okay, cool.
But that's not to say we didn't have a full package. I mean, I delivered him a 5-issue script, 20 pages of art, everything ready to go. So and he knows, for sure pick me over an unknown, because I'll get it done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's definitely tough, because I've also been in positions where I've had very good ins where I didn't even get considered. Actually, this whole story was pitched quite a bit differently to I'll just
someone else. Just say someone else in case you burn the bridge. Just say someone else.
A very big guy. And I did a book and something got screwed up, and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, I want to write an arc of Spawn. I'm just saying. And it was McFarlane. I'll just say, it doesn't matter. He said,
if we talk about McFarlane, where's the Batman and Robin series wave for the figures in the UK? Get them shipped over, dude. I'm sick of waiting. Sorry.
I pitched this general thing to him. I don't think he was ever going to give it to me anyways, but he was like, "What do you want to do?" And I go, "I want to write an arc." And then I sent him a synopsis, and it was very close to this. And then I never heard back, which is fine. I mean, he's a busy guy. I didn't think anything was going to come. He was just being nice. And then I grabbed it and went, you know what? I'm going to move it around. If this is a good story,
and then, this is great advice for people trying to break into the business. Just because you get a no from one publisher doesn't necessarily mean your stuff's bad. It just means it could be the book's not right for that publisher. It could be as you say, the schedule's full.
Yeah. Oh, it's tons, and the schedules can be full for 2 years. And even this, I just pulled Spawn out of it and inserted Paul, the pathetic Paul, rather than having the most badass guy coming for him. Now you've got the most pathetic guy with an ability, with an edge.
I wish you'd schedules being full. I wish you'd tell that to DC.
Yeah.
I can say I'm independent. I'm all right. They're never going to publish my stuff, so I'm all right. I'm fine. This is why I don't get advanced reviews on DC books anymore. Why are they? So, explain how this process works then, because in my head it kind of goes writer, artist, colorist, let it get it last, off you go.
Yeah,
you're in that enviable position, I suppose, where you write it, send it off to Mac, who then what you do? You're waiting for Mac to come back before you can do the second part of your job.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the in between? Do you just work on the next issue and work on through, or?
Yeah, I'm doing other comics. I got other books to do color on. Like color's like the day job. The creator-owned stuff is the second job. But I wait, and then it's nice. I just got pages from Mac today. It's like Christmas. It's nice to be able to start it to write it, and then Mac, honestly, everything I'm thinking to a T, that's how he draws it. It's so perfect. And then to be able to get my hands back in it, when it comes back, and then I can control anything. If I want to panel a little bigger, I can do that. I can make borders a little bigger. It's nice to have that control, and I guess that ability to do that as well.
Yeah.
And then it's off the lettering.
Cool. You sent me over some other stuff. I'm going to have a quick look at this because I'm always interested in stuff, in hearing different stories. And it is a colorist type of question. You sent this over, and I remember looking at the first issue of this book, and I quite liked it. Black and white. From a colorist point of view, are you thinking, yay, not a lot of work? Or are you thinking, God damn it, how many different blacks are there? Are there really 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah, I didn't do that cover, though. I just sent it because I did that book.
All right.
Well, I think Alex did that one.
So how does it work with black and white books then? Help me out with that then.
I've done grayscale books, and it's the same amount of work. If you're modeling like on that cover, it still takes time. It is what it is. Yeah, I try to like go lighter on money on. I did a book. It was called In the Flood, and I used black and a blue. That's it. And it was I think it was a spot color blue. So I just used shades of that blue and then all the shades of black and made the book. And at the time, Karen Berger at Vertigo, she was editing, and she goes, well, what do we do about rate? I go, rate's the rate. She goes, yeah, but it's only, using one color. I go, using one color, but I'm mixing them. It's the same amount of time.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never even thought of it from that way. To you, it doesn't matter if it's black, white, red, blue, green. It still has to be put on the page.
You're still modeling. You're still, and a lot of times it's harder. How do I make these two colors work where it doesn't get repetitive or boring? Yeah, that was a book I did a while back. Becky Clune and Andy Ballanger.
I like Becky Clunen's writing. It's such a. I was really enjoying the Batgirls book, even though I know it's probably not written for me. But there you go.
Yeah, she's all. We just finished Somna for Distillery.
Okay, cool.
Becky Clunen and Tula Lute and Dee Knief. It's a good one. It's a beautiful book.
I think we talked about these a little bit, so we're going to throw these up. These are just absolutely gorgeous. These by themselves just blow me away. Where are we at? Add it to the stage. There we go. Boom.
Oh, yeah. Detective.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Detective Comics.
I didn't do that cover.
But inside the work, you've got.
If you have an interior, I did the interiors.
I don't have the interior. But in this book, in this particular issue, you've got the sandstorm. He's in the desert. He's talking to Dr. Hurt. There's stuff going on in Gotham with the question, the Rennie Montoya question. So it kind of there's lots of different aspects there.
Yeah.
Surely when you take those sort of projects, as we mentioned earlier, surely it's not just the colors. You've got to think of the different contrasts of how you want it to look in the desert versus how you want it to look in the city, right?
For sure. And I approach that stuff normally I have stuff flatted. So it's all prepped and sky's blue, clouds are white, that kind of thing. But on Federici's pages, some of them I'll get flatted if they're really busy, but a lot of times I'll just go in and just start painting and just start working over stuff, and just to give it that organic. I want it to look like a painting because he's such a damn good painter, and I don't want him to hate me.
Well, fine.
All I do, I just don't want to disappoint him. And I do a lot of times. I think my modeling's fine, but sometimes my palettes, I'll go real monochromatic because that's what he does, and he'll go, no, what are you doing? Everything's the same tone. I'm like, all right, you didn't like that. It's tough. It's tough to read what he wants because he's so good. He's one of the best.
I suppose that's part of the parcel of working with someone who has a similar background from that aspect. I suppose it's kind of like I imagine it must be the type of problem when you've got someone who's a writer artist and they've got a writer on the book. And they're like, no, I wouldn't have done this. I would have done that. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, the kind of the contrast on there and the conflict.
Well, you know, the Federici pages, they're also pencils. They're just
Old
pencils.
school.
What's that?
Old school. Proper pencils on paper.
It's
Or
just
digital
pencils. No ink. It's set. So it's, you know, it's a lot to keep that contrast and make it. There's a technique to do it, but
Cool.
it's fun. He's really good.
Excellent. Right, we're running close to the end of the show. So give us your 60 second pitch on why people should be heading over to Comixology to pick up MidState.
I have 60-second pitch.
Yeah. Give me a elevator pitch, man.
I think if you're a fan of an underdog, if you're a fan of mystery murder, I'd rather challenge you to see if you can figure out just what the heck is going on.
All right, okay. I will be in touch.
Because every issue I do turn everything. I like to cliffhang each issue and turn it on its head, make you think you know what's going on until you finally do, and then I love endings that where you think you've got it, because we all try to do that, right? When we watch it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've got this. And when they twist it once and you go, oh, that was great, and then they do it again, you're like, oh.
I'm going to give you a bit of a compliment on this one, Lee. And I read the book, and I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody, but I have to say, and we've alluded to it already, with the kind of small town vibe that you've got going on, there are some absolutely well-observed pieces of humanity in this book. There are pieces that made me smile. There were pieces that made me wistful. And I'll explain after the pod which bits those were. So I absolutely genuinely applaud you for that, because it's so gratifying to read a book that can reflect some of the things that you've experienced and some of the things you've seen. And you can only write that through observation of other people or yourself. So thank you so much for putting all that effort and detail into it.
I'm glad you like it. I hope everyone else does.
They should. If they're not, they're idiots.
They don't, they're not for me.
Fair enough. Right. You can follow Lee on Insta and Twitter, or X as some people are calling it. Not me, because I'm old school.
You're straight edge. Nice.
So, if you're interested in the book, head over to Amazon, type in Comixology, MidState. You know how it works. I'd show you the link, but the link's like this long.
Yeah.
I haven't got the time for that. So you know how search engines work. Hell, if you found the show, you can find the search engine. Simple. There you go. Cool. Lee, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show. Thank you so much for spending the time.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You are more than welcome. That's it for this show. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows, including the Old Timers Comic Book Show. If you're a Marvel fan, don't forget to check out the No Prize Podcast, where they'll be looking at more episodes of X-Men 97. And for you DC hounds, there is the Definitive Crusade, getting all hyped up for what's happening over in Detective, Batman, and is there any other books that come out from DC? I don't know.
Batman, Robin.
Yeah. Check out Detective Comics and you'll see Lee's work on there. There you go. Cool. Excellent. Lee, one more time, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Good luck on the book. It's a fantastic read. All right, I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes, and as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.